Here's a key. We're good, yeah, we're good, we're good. Alright, so, I gotta look up there, right? So I've gotta look up there, I can't look right here. I don't wanna mess with Alright, we're getting close, we're getting close. Do you want a clicker? Yeah. Oh, that's. You'll love that. Yeah. It's okay, I promise. We'll just go with it. Yeah. Yep. All right, let's see what we've got here. We've got our results. Let's look at our responses. Where are you? All right, y'all see how the struggle is real. It's gonna go wrong, it's gonna go wrong.
Do you have to lock it, or?
Oh, wait, maybe right here? No, that's another one. Yeah, maybe that's it.
You might scroll down, cause I can see where it says total results 19.
Yeah.
It wasn't that one. I did look at that one too.
Well, I keep clicking this. We'll lock it.
Does the, mouse scroll down? At 19.
I don't wanna clear my results. Let me just hit exit and see what happens. All right. Responses. Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm really struggling today.
We're learning, we're
Yeah.
learning together.
Yeah. Let me just see if it comes up here. All right, so let's just start here. So I do wanna encourage you, this is good work that you're doing. You are making a huge difference. And when we surround ourselves with people just like you, our world will be a better place. And I think about even just Michelle saying, I just overheard her talking about a brand new student from the Ukraine. I mean, that's world changing. For one child, what you do makes a tremendous difference. And I know you've already experienced it when you see your children, your students, or the people that you've interacted with on down the road, and you see them out in the community, and they remember you, and they say thank you, or you did this for me. That's priceless. So just remember those things. Think about being with successful people, surrounding yourself with people that care just as much as you do. So I hope that encourages you a little bit this morning. So we are talking about school improvement, and we are gonna look at the legislation today, but I'm gonna start with the school part today. I flip-flopped it, Dr. Simeon, so I'm a little bit different today. We're gonna have a lot of collaboration. I want you to feel free to talk and ask questions. I'm still learning about school improvement. I started out in the 90s, when they sent us to teacher academies at East Carolina University, and they picked a group of people to learn about school improvement. And we did that in the summer, and then we had to come back to our schools and explain what school improvement was about. And I still remember to this day, and it's embarrassing to admit it, but we decided we were gonna have a goal that we could meet. We were like, what do you mean school improvement? What do you mean we have to prove what we're doing? And what do you mean we have to have goals and data and meet those, objectives each year and then share it with other people? It was brand new, and here we are 30 years later, and we're still trying to figure out school improvement and what it looks like. I can tell you that it is going on beautifully in our state. There's a lot of schools that have got it down pat. There are some places where we still don't understand it. We still don't understand the law. Even in Moore County, one of our sitting board members called us out on a detail about the school safety plan. We've been doing it like that for years. I was even in charge of it for our district. And we've been doing it the same way every single time with our school safety plans. And he called us out on one little minute detail that we should have voted on our school safety plan, and it should have been a part of the process before we approved our school improvement plans. So we've got a lot of little details in there that we need to know about, and you need to know about, but our bottom line is that we are trying to improve our schools for all students, period. No matter what they look like, no matter how much money they have in their pocket, no matter where they come from, if they come from down the road or Ukraine. And our number one goal is student learning. If we can remember that, and I know you can because I've heard you talk about it just even this morning, we are going to be fine. So our outcomes for today are why. Why are we doing school improvement? What's the deal? And what do you need to know and be able to do? I want us to discuss it. We're gonna practice it a little bit today, and then I'm gonna share some suggestions for processes. So that's what our goal is. I wanna encourage you to talk, question. If you need to stand up, if I'm talking too long like I am right now, but please forgive me because my schedule got a little messed up. But please get engaged with this work. We can talk about it because you all bring experiences to the table that I haven't had. So please feel open to discuss. I want to give credit right now for a lot of this information, and I didn't have time to go in and put a lot of quotation marks. But I want you to understand where I've learned a lot of this work from, because back 30 years ago, we were just kind of handed a manual, go do this work. There's not been a whole lot of serious training that I experienced. We really tried, when we implemented PLCs in Moore County. That was a process to help principals and school administrators to develop school improvement. I've been through training in my own district, but it doesn't really sink in until you actually, do the work of school improvement on your own as a leader or as part of the team. But these are some resources. You'll notice that a lot of them are from Australia. And I have been very impressed with the work of David Langford. He was the one, when we were trying to implement it in Moore County, we didn't have a lot of tools, and his Tool Time for Education book is $75. It's kind of expensive, so I don't have a copy for myself. But we did find a lot of great norms and tools that we could use with our teams. And then Improving Learning is a more recent book, same time, but they took what David Langford did and made it more digestible with the processes and the systems of school improvement. And then they also recommended the book by Peter Schlachtes, The Leader's Handbook. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but y'all forgive me. So we've already reflected on our school improvement experiences, and then it didn't come through. So y'all let's just shout out some words because I can't see it. What were some of the words that you said? And Jamie, would you write them on the board for me? I hate to put you to work, but I need help. There's Martha. All right, so just shout, we'll just go around the room. Data.
Achievement, collaboration,
attention.
Yeah, look, hey, y'all might, we might need two folks. You got another one? Make sure it's.
Someone said intention.
And collaboration, someone said. Teamwork. Change. Purposeful.
Not an elementary school teacher.
Purposeful.
It's a,
Purposeful is said. You can spell her, that's good.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Commitment.
Ongoing.
Which is the same thing as on the next one.
I'm impressed with her spelling.
she is in the LA.
She is, yeah, she is the LA teacher, yeah. Okay, any other new words?
Making your own.
That's
Very
what I
good.
wrote.
Those are great.
Is that it? Did I get it all?
Good job, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Yay. All right, so, you know, very positive words there. I'm impressed. Positive words, I like, the continuous and ongoing, so true. It never ends. We keep working on it. Change, commitment, it does take serious commitment. Let's see what's going on here. Yay, thank you, Ashley. All right, oops, going backwards. Let's go the other way. Dr. Calcutta, ma'am.
I put, actually, I thought of, that word was not the word I put a lot of work.
Oh, yes, 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 absolutely.
Like, it's not a simple
Yes,
process.
it is definitely not simple, and, you know, when do you start it? When do you begin it? When do you know, how does this work throughout the year, that work? So what we're gonna start with are the systems and thinking about school improvement, and seeing it big and keeping it simple. And so I'm sorry for all this up here, but I wanna give a little history here and some kudos to Edwards Deming. Anybody ever heard of him? Okay, so he was an American statistician, and he is really well known for his work in Japan following the Second World War. And General MacArthur, and Ashley's my history expert in here, was in charge of helping Japan to rehabilitate and get their economy back on their feet. And so while he was in charge, he asked Edwards Deming to come to Japan to help with their processes. And he changed Japan. I mean, look at the success of Japan today. It all started with Edwards Deming and the work that he put in place. It was a management philosophy of the 1980s, and even when he came back from Japan to the United States, we started waking up in the United States, and we were seeing that our competitiveness and our productivity was declining. We just were not producing quality products and processes. So, in the United States, in 1987, the Congress passed the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Improvement Act because they wanted to see businesses and corporations polish and clean up their products. We were just not producing quality work. But it wasn't just us. Even in Australia, they had their quality awards in 1988, and then in Europe, they had the quality awards in 1992. So you can see this time frame of when all this talk about total quality and improvement really hit the ground running. And then Demings decided that it's not just about industry, but you can also apply it to education, and that was in the 1980s. And then it hit my world in the 1990s when our state legislature and our DPI decided, well, we've got to improve our schools too. Got to go the right way. All right, so here's just a little picture of Edwards Deming and the New Economics, and his piece was about profound knowledge, and this was his philosophy that he took to Japan. that when people understand a system and when they can apply their knowledge, and we think about the human condition and how we like to work, and then we also understand that there's a lot of variety and variation in our data and in our processes, that we can develop this system of profound knowledge. Now, that was the book in the 1980s, in 1993 actually, that he wrote this. He was 90 years old, y'all, so yeah. He compiled all of his knowledge there, and I love the title of it because The New Economics for Industry, Government, and Education. So this man, with his great thinking, his mathematical mind, and then his implementation of how to work with people, created this movement that we're still following today. And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So I want to remind us of that. What is our main thing? Student learning. So, let's see, what time is it? I didn't, do we need a break? Okay, let's take a quick break, 5-minute break. Stretch your legs. I'm gonna pass out some things and then we'll get started. So let's come back at 10:07. 7 minutes, and we'll start at 10:10. I can tell we need to stretch. I'm reading the room, Dr. Simeon. How are you?
So did they actually have the beds?
Yeah. Get everybody.
My grandfather, we had like a building. It's like playing like real like rather than we're telling you like never made it for us.
Yeah, I know.
It's like talking about fifth grade kids.
It is.
Oh, it's by the fair barn?
Yes, I was at the fair barn.
No point did anybody communicate, I'm aware of these things.
Cause I got, there's a
And
report
I
right in
sent an
my,
email out, our principal
on my
was
tennis.
Really?
Cause there's the tennis courts and
Yeah.
the
Now
shuffleboard
she's in
box.
like emails out.
Have you never played?
Don't send
Yes,
them,
I
how
played
you
it.
did, just don't send them. It was benefit, yeah.
I just, it was the natural form.
Yeah, that's not right, she's doing that.
It should be, but it is, just like I keep saying, it should be, stop it. But it is, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Y'all encourage me to get it.
That's why I like it. So I think every time when you're good job. Good. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Don't stand up.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna get it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm at Lake Halfway. I'm all the way up by 690 on Route 1.
Yeah, like the company.
It would just like, they would placements. It's 10 positions and you interview and they place you in high school. I always loved to make sure I worked because the principal there, she has no elementary background. But she's a really good teacher. Elementary.
So that would be, will you be assigned?
That would be or I would also really like to go to Texas, since that's where the majority of our kids are going. Our kids are being supposed to be further these like just salaries, but the most of them we've already got relationships built.
Oh my
It
gosh. Well, I went in Cindy, I went in this morning, cause I had to train Miss Dorman to be a backup coordinator for the extend stuff, and right as we was going out, one of the 7th graders, they've already gotten into a fight. He was all bloody up and everything, so it's like, remember how you're saying it doesn't seem to be slowing down, it seems to be getting worse? I mean, trying to get his name.
Step out for a minute, so I'll tell you what I wanna do.
It'll come to
I want
me.
to give everyone these papers, a little post-it note. I want you to write on it your choice for your class speaker. Yes. You vote for the one person in your class that you would like to represent you at the reception.
F-A.
Don't select anybody who's got dirt on you now.
Oh, let me tell you, when they stand up, we just let them talk.
All right, don't pick Jamie.
Oh,
I think Shannon would be kind of.
all right, no talking.
I'm sorry.
No talking. Anybody else you want? When you fold it, on the outside, please write CU or UNCP. Fold it and then write CU or UNCP.
Looks like we're ready. Are y'all ready?
Ashley has to wear the beard again, she
I will, I'll have to buy a new one, cause that like ripped my, hairs off my face. TJ's got my hat. He wanted it fair and square. Man, I missed it.
We were at Campbell and Ashley was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, Abraham Lincoln, okay.
They did Lincoln on leadership.
Oh, wow, that's great.
All right, do we have everybody's?
Man, I hate to miss that.
It was good.
All right.
I'll cut it yours.
Okay.
And just before.
All right, yes, ma'am. So, how do we do this work of school improvement? You might think that I'm trying to give you a business model, and no, I'm not. It's really about math and people and processes. And I heard Dr. Simeon, process is process. It is so, so true. So when we think about school improvement, it feels like, wow, I've gotta do something else. I know that it's hard for you to think about anything else right now. You're at the end of the year, you're probably thinking about testing and discipline and grades and your teachers. But this is work that I want you to really embrace for a little while, try to put all that to the side, and let's just talk about what our world is like on the campus and in the community. When we think about Deming's work, he really, and others after him, lots and lots, because it caught on like wildfire in the 80s and 90s, and so a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, and there was a lot of processes and a lot of literature and a lot of books out there, but it all kind of boils down to 4 things, and that's what we're looking at right now, and that's called the Quality Learning and Improvement Philosophy. And when we think about it, the first step are our systems. We are in a system in this work that we do. We work with people. We have to know our people. We have to know how to work with people. I have to know now how to work with people that don't even like me. Yes, I had some people that didn't like me when I was principal. I had people that didn't like me when I was a teacher. And we just learn how to work together. But we need to think about how can we be really effective. Knowledge, we have to understand the data. We have to understand the processes and best practices that we can put in place as leaders to help and grow the knowledge bank. I am all about educating right now in this political race that I find myself in. It's all about teaching. And then we need to think about the variation. We need to think about it's not always going to be the same. There's going to be variables. How do we deal with it? So we're going to get into these areas into more detail. So we're going to start with systems. We live in a system, and these are some of the bullet points about systems. We have people in our system. We're in a social system. The system that we're in, we think about our classroom, we think about our school, we think about our district, our state, our country. We have to have clarity of purpose in our system. So you think about our mission statements. We have to be able to define excellence. What does our best system or school look like? What does our best classroom look like? What does our best district look like? And then we have to think about our stakeholders. Who are the people that we're working with? We're not just working for our students, we are also working for our communities, our parents, our nation, and really the world, because our kids can go anywhere in the world. We have to see the processes that we are involved in. Like, what is the process? Y'all have really experienced a brand new process as administrators that maybe was something that you had never thought about as a teacher. And then we have to get down to identifying root causes. So the system. So you've got to be able to see it big. You've got to look at the big picture. That system is that network of all those cogs in the wheel, all those pieces that are going to work together. So like I just said a few minutes ago, all of these parts belong to the system of public schools, or education, if you will. So we're focusing on public schools today, but think about our other colleagues in the world. Our private schools, our church schools, our charter schools, our online schools. I don't even know all kinds of schools. I went to the education summit at the Village Hall a couple of weeks ago. My competition, had this big event. They wanted our Moore County community to see all the options available for the children in our county. And there were 10 or 12 different options there. There was one option there that was totally online, and they probably only had like 5 students in this group, and, it was very interesting. I didn't even know it existed. But think about this big system that we're in of education and funding and money. So, we have school law that manages us and tells us what to do. We have a school calendar that tells us when we can start and when we end. We have licensure that tells us, yes, you are qualified to be a teacher, you are qualified to be an administrator. What else do we have? Y'all put your thinking caps on for a minute. What else, what are other factors that direct our systems? Jamie?
Local allotments,
Mm.
how much money we get.
Yes, even local allotments. What else? What are some other factors that, affect our system that we're in?
Whether or not you're a Title I school.
Yep. So the finances of your students, okay? Good one. What else?
The context of your society, so what's going on in your community outside of the building.
Good one. Yes. Even your community, the politics, the local environment, the pandemic affected us, our health. Yes.
Location, so for example, Marcani's close to Fort Bragg and that transitory population,
Mhm.
and, all sorts of other factors that can affect that. Whether or not the PGA Tour is coming through.
Oh, good point.
It really does affect
It
us, right, because they
does.
use our buses, so.
Yes. Local economy.
And neighboring economies and what they are willing to pay versus what
Oh,
you pay.
good one. Say that again.
So like your neighboring economies and what other
Yeah.
districts are paying their educators.
Yeah. Yeah, going across the line, going across, different districts. I can pay you more. Yes.
Housing,
Oh,
That's
gosh,
a good
yes, housing. Oh, my goodness.
taxes.
Taxes, yeah. Do you see all the different parts that affect our system? So, we are a social system. Now that, we know that, but I just want you to see there are business systems, economic systems. We're a social system. And I thought this was kind of an interesting, thought here. The behavior and performance of a classroom, work group, or organization is much more heavily influenced by the interaction among people than by the direct impact of each individual. How many of you thought that it was the leader of the school that had the impact? Yes, it does, but how many of you thought that it's just the one student in the classroom that affects the behavior of the whole classroom? So this kind of caused me to pause for a minute. When we think about the social system, it's really about the impact of the group of people. Think about that for a minute. Do you agree, disagree? Let's talk about it.
I agree, because it's, you can, I don't know how to explain it. How you react also determines how it's gonna be handled, so if you're reactionary rather than being proactive or working to resolve an issue, that can affect the whole group.
Think about the group. Yes, ma'am.
So, when I'm sure we all have that one student, but when you said like one student doesn't change, I was thinking, well, it can, but that goes within the context of the classroom. So if you have created a space that doesn't allow for the misbehavior of another student, the other students won't feed into it, then that student probably isn't gonna act up. So the interaction among the people, the vibe that you have in your school and your classroom, does that make sense?
Yep, it does. That's the social social system. Think about that power of the social group, of the group of people rather than the individual.
It goes back to, like, I'm sure we've all had this situation where, like, someone new comes in and wants to implement a change. And everyone kind of grins and says, okay, on the surface, but then there are people within the school who are undermining that change the whole time. So that it doesn't, you know, that one person may have what is a great idea or is thought to be a great idea by some, but it takes the buy-in from everyone. Buy-in's not the word.
Yep.
Dr. Smith doesn't like that though, right?
Ownership.
Ownership.
Okay.
I do know it takes, I mean, you know, it takes
Yeah.
everyone agreeing
Right.
to implement, so I think that it's the same thing. If people are, if you have individuals that are undermining, then the change can't take place, or you can't.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about anything social, because social always thinks that, I think of friends and doing
Right.
something outside of school,
Mhm.
nothing can happen unless everyone has ownership or buy-in or wants to be a part of that. So that's true in any social situation. You have to have people who are invested in whatever it is you're doing, otherwise it's not gonna happen.
Mhm.
It's just not.
Yeah.
And I honestly, every school I have ever been at, with the school improvement, that has always been one of those, it's not done the way it should be done. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's always just like, okay, we're checking it off to say that we had this meeting, and we're just, you know, there isn't that ownership at all.
I'm so glad you said that. And it's, yeah, I struggled as a principal, I'm not gonna lie. It was hard. It was so hard to go into a brand new school and think about, how am I gonna rally the people? How am I gonna encourage the people? You know, it's not me. It was not the principal. It's the people. So you have to join in with your people. You cannot be the one trying to, you know, make people do things. It's not gonna work. And on the flip side, we can't blame the principal. We can't blame the teacher. You see what this philosophy is about? This social system? You know, I'm a member of a Rotary Club, and I love it. And I just kind of just happened to, you know, join because that's what our district wanted us to do, to join, you know, civic groups. And so I happened to join Rotary, and I've loved it so much. I'm still a member, I'm paying my own dues now. You know, I've been doing that. But I think about our work. We all wanted to do this work. We all had the same philosophy of service above self. We all like to socialize and meet and talk and have friends that I would have never met before. But it's a social system. And it's because of the interaction of the people. Yes, ma'am.
So as I think about like the word interaction, I wonder if we don't sometimes get the ownership and people, because we don't have as many people interacting with the plan itself. Because SIT members are voted upon, right? And that was something that they told us at Intrepid is like the downfall of our school improvement team is that these are voluntold people in some
Yes.
cases who are working this plan, and so everyone else is like, well, I'm not it, hands
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
instead of us kind of getting people, making it something that people want to do.
Right.
And so people really don't interact with it, so therefore, are they making that impact? Are we able to move the needle on that kind of thing?
Great observation. So true. So how can you do things better? You know, that's what my point is today. You have got to do better than my group did. That's why I'm trying to really help to expand your thinking a little bit today, and we're not gonna solve all the problems, but I hope that when we talk, and I love these conversations, that we'll be able to open our brains a little bit broader. So how does this system operate? You've gotta know how the system operates. That is key. And then making sure everybody else understands, like, why are we doing school improvement? Where does it fit within the context? What are the root causes of our poor performance? If we are doing things wrong, y'all, I was in this group, over 100 people. people, somebody from our General Assembly with the mic saying that our schools are failing our children. I thought I was going to die. I was like, where in the where in the hell am I right now? You know, I was like, what in the world? We have got to show without a shadow of a doubt that we are not failing our students. What are the causes and effects of our actions? How can we optimize our resources and our people? And then how can we work in and on the system that we find ourselves in? How can we be innovative? I want you to think about that for just a minute. Can you think of an innovation that you've seen this year? Anything, any kind of moment of innovation, something different.
So we come from a Title I county, so every school in the county is Title I. And we have a lot of poverty in our system. The truth is, a lot of our students do not go to college. So we've partnered with our community college to provide pathways at each one of our high schools that will give them a trade and a certificate.
That's amazing.
So like this summer, our students have the opportunity to go for free to the community college and get certification in HVAC.
That's
awesome.
That's
really cool.
Yay.
And then we have a teacher licensure program that we just signed with UNCP too.
Yeah, I know, I want y'all to come see Andrew soon. All right, but fabulous. I mean, low, you know, they don't have to pay as much on tuition. I mean, I'm all for that. So great innovation. What else? What little spark of innovation have you seen this year?
Keita and I went to the advanced teaching roles put on by BESS. And sounds like the Polaris strategic plan is also kind of in line with that, which is great. And for a hot second, we thought that we weren't gonna be Title I, and apparently we are Title I again next year.
Oh.
Surprise. So we get to keep our reading interventionist, but it was opening kind of like a mindset of how we could strategically use our FTE allotments, and so how we could team people. So that was nice, and I think that we're gonna push to that in the coming year, but using our school improvement team to kind of morph through some plans.
Good. Wow, it's a lot, Jamie. Okay, what else? What about our system? Anything innovative? And those were definitely great examples. I'm not saying one, but think about, we're talking about our system. Any kind of innovation in our system.
Well, are you thinking, like, I was thinking of the whole online learning. I mean, we're
Yes.
doing Connect Academy.
Yes.
And this year
Yep.
it's connected to the schools, but next year it's gonna be its own entity,
Mhm.
its own school, which is, just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it was I think that's something we always planned,
Yeah.
but COVID pushed us into
Uh-huh.
it much quicker. So yeah, that's huge, that changes a lot.
Yes. So we are competitive now.
And our blend ed, which goes right in tandem with that, which is offering like parents who prefer a homeschool option, it gives them the 2 days in the classroom in the school and then 3 days at home.
Yeah.
That's huge. I never thought I'd see that.
Right.
I'm
Yes, ma'am.
speaking for a colleague, but Talisha started your Saturday, what's it called?
Academy,
Saturday Academy again this year to help with some of her students, and you can talk about it, but I just wanted to highlight that, because that, to me, that was a big thing for her high school students, to be able to have that opportunity on a Saturday.
Mhm. Very good. So innovation, we have to keep innovating. We have to keep changing to meet the needs of our community and our students, and really to stay competitive. We were never having to worry about that. Now we do. We are competitive with a lot of different groups. And one of my favorite things to say out loud is that you can be a homeschool student if that's what you need for your child, but use our own Moore County teachers. Don't go with the big box companies. Stay with our own, systems. We know what we're doing. We are the experts. We are licensed teachers. Okay, so some templates that you can use. We're gonna try this in just a second to reflect and improve on our systems are things such as a system template, and you don't see that right now, the fishbone diagram, which you can help to use cause and effect, the 5 whys to help you get to the root cause. There's something called a force field analysis, and that's like a SWOT analysis, what forces are for and against us. I love the interrelationship diagram to find causes and effects, and our system progress of where were we, where are we now, where do we wanna go. So I do have some tools that I'm gonna share with you, and we're gonna try some out, to find out what are some causes and effects and how we can get to the root cause. Think about your work this year. I just wanna see if you can anybody remember working with your school improvement team and part of your work was analyzing the root cause, your comprehensive needs assessment, okay? Very good. All right, let's talk about our purpose in our system. This is using that psychology a little bit. And I love this quotation from Viktor Frankl. Being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. And that's one of our social system pieces that we need to hold on to. We are human and we want to help. We want to help other people. We want to make this world a better place. So when you think about your purpose, it's important for our leaders to help our teachers and our community to understand what is the purpose of our school. So think about that shared purpose, your mission statement, your vision, and your quality, and your values. What are those parts that we need to make sure our people have to make sure that we're all pointed in the same direction? So what I want to do now, because I feel like we need to have a little bit more engagement, is to look at some school improvement plans. And I'd like you to get into groups of 3 or 4, and you can just kind of turn around and make your own groups. And I'm gonna give you a school improvement plan, and I want you to look for the mission, the vision, let's see. And any kind of quality criteria. All right, now this y'all. Some of these are old, that's okay.
That's how I will see it.
Okay, see if you can find the mission, vision, and any type of quality. Yes, right, yes, you may. You can write, you can highlight. And if you need another one, I've got some extras. Yeah. Like quality, values, any kind of, quality criteria is what they wanna see, what their rubric looks like. I've got extras if that one's not working for you. Write down. One of you can write down glows and grows. This is from the state. Whatever.
Just about happening in Brooklyn. Nothing. To me, the narrative.
anytime like when you write your activity list and you write what you've already done.
Maybe vision of excellence, what it will look like when it is done. Wow.
Generic. It's specific. Yeah, they're hoping that in.
I bet some of these are like mandated by the district probably. Delegate. Improve the leadership team.
Is that what I'm thinking?
This is the most common one.
This is like the PLC of the community.
So, systems. Somebody have a hitter in one's more systems within the school.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This, so to me, that this is a grove that, you know, it's basic. There's nothing, like, I don't get their personality, well, I don't get their personality at all, but I can see that they do have a smart thing, which is a glow for me.
I think this should be happening. PLC should be happening. Which one? These align intentionally not
See, that's why I think some of these are probably made by the county, like Monroe Avenue might be doing it, but El Dorado might not, because we're at different levels of implementation, so I think that's difficult sometimes. Like you have to have A401. And it's like, well, okay, for us it's just a check, but for us, like we really need to focus on that.
Yeah. So, but that's like my point to this, because like some of those are.
So this is the investigators. This is the
And I know, but it's important that we speak the right language.
Okay, so GLOWs.
And the.
I think they understand that this is not just the involved, that it's everybody here to do.
Like what indicator different the attendance one? The SEL one?
Cause that's a big deal.
Some type of indicator about like, family communication.
Instruction.
This one
Yeah.
is this one, so like TIS.
And I would just say it's instruction, but not just.
So this one would go with that one, so it's goal 3, and this one would go with goal 3.
And like,
It's something.
I don't think it's that loud, right?
Sometimes one gets put out and I don't realize that, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is, I mean, that's the point, right?
Doing all these, embody all these.
Also, where are the action steps? Am I missing action steps? Like, we have the goals, but what are the action steps for the goals?
This is the indicator that knows that you, okay, this is a goal, how we know we've met it.
That's some of the notes are close together, but you see that there's some monitors in.
Is there another feature? LEA has established system of procedures and guidelines for recruiting volunteer policing staff. Does it always see the goals? Exceeds growth. Well, just like on county, I always have to do something about based on the district says, so that's probably what.
That's your attendance one.
What is this?
I could go with several of them, because it's about like learning it. Okay? Okay. Y'all got it flowing.
Okay, yeah, grows, so action steps, okay, here's. And action step alignment with the indicators. And that's what I'm missing. And like, this is next.
Well, if it's something that they're not used to, it'll probably take some time, and
But the action.
you're kind of modeling
But that's
for
what the action
whoever's
steps
gonna be a teacher leader, or if it's gonna be rotating, giving everyone a chance that way.
House calls.
Instructional support. So that's not gonna meet everything.
There's There's also no accountability. No,
It's what you guys want.
I know these are the public plans, but.
Okay, about one more minute. Try to find a glow and grow.
Right, they're gonna be able to do this.
It's focused on student benefits. They're smart. That's right. And they target multiple students on one.
So.
Yeah, individualized.
No.
So December, we're going to do assessments on some practices, determine what students met standards, identify how to excel these students, identify students who do not meet standards, and identify what students are doing, and help these students. But what specific ones, specific, those who met the standards, what do you do?
Okay, we'll hit pause on this and see how we did. We'll just go around and we're thinking about the purpose, the shared purpose. How can you tell? We were, Elizabeth was just talking about how, that shared purpose, sometimes we just don't talk about it, we don't think about it. Can you even see it on the school improvement plan? So that's kind of what we were looking for. And please understand that we are just using these as samples. Doesn't mean they're good, bad, or different. It just means we're just looking to try to analyze. And we're gonna look at your own in a little bit too. So, vision statement. Vision. Do you see kind of a quality criteria that they're looking for? Do they have some type of, this is our goal? And do they have their values included in their school improvement? All right, let's just hear some glows and some grows. All right, yes ma'am.
So looking at ours, the mission, it's hard to get a sense of, the community of this school. I live in Moore County, so I know.
Oh, yeah.
But, like their mission is, their mission and their, thank you, vision, it's like super generic. So their mission is the Westmore school family will provide a safe, positive environment that results in academic growth and character development for every student, which that should be every school, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know, we had a hard time getting a sense of
Yeah.
what their aim is.
Okay. A little too generic on their mission.
Right.
Okay.
Their goals were a lot more specific, and so that's
Right.
that's what we were able to look at, is based on what their goals were stated. They were written in smart form, so that helped.
Okay. So good job on their goals,
Mhm.
okay?
Whereas we did not, oh, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
Yes, we did not, ours were not written in SMART goal format, they were very general, you know the heart of what they're trying to do, but there's no specifics, like how are you gonna achieve this, and what are your expectations, and what's your progress monitoring that you're going to do?
Mhm. So vague there, yes, sir?
For our school, they were using the Moore County mission and vision, so we're not even sure what theirs are. And,
School specific.
yeah,
Okay.
so it was very generic, and then for one of their only goal, it talked about improving the growth index for students with disabilities. So I'm assuming the rest of the subgroups are doing great.
Mhm.
I mean, that's my only assumption,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, see how difficult it can be? I mean, we're even professional educators and we're struggling to be clear about their purpose or their mission. Yes, teacher?
Well, can I ask a question? Because that strikes me that, I've been in other trainings to where, they've used examples. Is there not someone at the district level? Because I know that those emails come out about making sure that your plan is up to
Right.
date. But
Right.
is there someone actually kind of reviewing these things to let schools know this is kind of generic, or you just copied the counties? Or
Yeah.
is it because those district leaders share that same value of, this is just something the state required us to do, let's just make sure that they have it up there so no one says there's a nasty gram?
Well, typically, yes, there is district leadership that really monitors and, analyzes and, I've experienced a couple of different things, TJ. I mean, one year, I did it myself. I did the whole school group plan myself. This was when I was an assistant principal. It wasn't when I was principal. So we've learned and we've gotten better, but, yes, there should be a district lead group. Sometimes it's assistant superintendents, sometimes it's directors. But you want to have someone come and look at your work, because this is going to the state. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for us, for Cumberland County, prior to each monthly SIT meeting, my principal's supervisor, she's the one who goes in and checks it, and then she actually makes a note. So when we start our SIT meeting, we go through, read the notes, and if it says, hey, be more specific on this specific part or this specific indicator, then we go in and we have to make that change, at the beginning of the meeting, and then, we look at each of her feedback every single time.
That's good. Anybody else?
So I'm in Moore County, and we are on alternating cycles, so this year it was our 2-year time to write our plan for the next 2 years. And so we did have district feedback, they met with us, they asked us to tweak some things about our goals. I'm not quite sure why everyone's has the Moore County vision, because that's not our vision. I don't know if ours is out there, but like our vision and mission is different from the counties per se. But I know for a fact that we do have people that come in and do it. And this year it's been a little bit harder because of the contention on the board.
Right.
I think everyone is trying to not make ripples. Everybody's trying to be by the letter, you know what I mean, and do things that that parents can understand, because, so some things we went more general and less specific on, if it was like an action step, because we didn't wanna overwhelm parents with information and jargon.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kinda keep that simple, but we wanted the goals there to be no splitting hairs about what we're trying to accomplish over the next 2 years. So it's been a little weird.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Lately.
I'll add to that. We also had to make it public friendly. I don't want to say it that way, but yes.
Yeah.
Because, they are publishing basically like the public side of our Industar. And that's, instead of doing the one-pagers, instead of doing like posting a PDF of this and that, like, they have access to our Industar. And so, that's probably why it got systematized, of having this district's mission and vision on some of these, if it's this year, because it did get, check the boxy, if that's a phrase. Check the boxy, and so like then you have to balance that, you know, what the public sees versus your true intent, and then if it gets too intense, then you're not balancing the public, like, it's a lot, it's a heavy burden to carry.
It is, and I think we don't advertise that enough, like, it took me forever to find a parent to be on our SIT team, and when I finally nailed down the parent, this is after we had like met, voted, and we were running down, okay, now we're at implementation stage. She literally said, oh my gosh, I did not realize it was this complex, like I had no clue. This is a very highly educated woman, who was like, I had no clue this is all the moving parts that go into what you guys do for my kids, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it sounds like, and I mean, just, I've heard you guys talk about, and,
Yeah, you're fine.
you know, kind of the tension in Moore County. It almost seems like the because school improvement plans are public record, that they've almost become weaponized. I mean, it seems like it's almost become, instead of it being a tool to help improve, you know, because the whole point of the school improvement team is you've got to rip the Band-Aid off, you've got to expose everything, warts and all. However, then when you get to the point where that's what you have to do in order to be able to get to the root cause, to figure out what we need to change, then whenever it's becoming a weapon and it's like,
Can't be vulnerable.
right, that's that.
It's kind of like making your marriage counseling public, like,
Right.
like, we'll talk about this with the counselor here, but like, I don't need the whole community to know, but like, that's what it needs to be,
Right.
but that's what it's become.
But instead of, I guess, the community seeing it as we are transparent, this is what we're showing, and this is how we're gonna fix it, it's like, darn you for doing it that way,
Yeah.
we're gonna condemn you for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look at how poor, if you, and if you're honest about it, I don't know why I'm twisting all
No,
the way
you're fine, you're
around.
fine.
But,
Yeah.
that's kinda good.
Yes, ma'am.
It's, what was I gonna say? Oh, like if you are honest
Yeah.
about, you know, the challenges we
Right.
face, then it's used against you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, look at, especially in politics, look at how poorly the schools are doing. Well, first of all, that's an untrue statement.
Right.
But when we're honest about the challenge, especially post-COVID,
Mhm.
and how kids have, you know, it's like you said, it is weaponized.
Mhm.
We're failing our kids, like you said, and that's so frustrating.
It is, but y'all, we need to be true to ourselves. We always wanna tell the truth, we always wanna be clear and transparent. And yes, we sometimes have to write things so our public can understand it. I've been chastised a couple of times for using education terms, when I'm talking to groups, and I have to remember not to use my education lingo. So, yes, we do have to, and we are in a new world. But I say, keep it real, keep it honest, lay it out there. The people that truly care will see the truth and see the hard work and the efforts. It is interesting, yeah, we are, you know, airing our dirty laundry, if you will, but this is who we are, this is the work that we do. And if you think about the growth and the dedication and the innovation and the historical knowledge that we have, nobody can touch it, nobody can touch it. So, you know, I say, just be honest. What are some other glows and grows? Did we see anything that was really outstanding that you thought, wow, this school's got it going on?
I just like that, they use multiple stakeholders, like even on their school improvement team, they had like a student on there, you know, parents, they talked about not just instruction, you know, they talked about content, but they also talked about, character, like SEL kind of stuff and expectations, and I think that's gonna be huge right now, with them coming back to school, they don't know how to act, I mean, we had an athletic banquet, awards the other day, and there were
Yeah.
kids in the, you know, they're like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, they don't know how to act at an awards
Yes.
banquet.
Yeah.
Yep, and then, but then you also have parents in the crowd,
Yeah.
like,
They're doing the same
and I'm like,
thing, yeah.
okay, so we're animals. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, I just wasn't sure how this was gonna roll, cause when I used to have awards banquets growing up, it was nothing like that. It was, you know, we dressed nice, we sat there, we applauded, we listened to people, we didn't, you know, wear our hat backwards and go, yo, bro, you know?
You can get through the
just
Oscars
different.
at this
So I'm
point.
excited to see what our academic awards are like
Yeah.
on Tuesday.
You kind of want them to be that excited about it,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
It's very interesting.
And I'm an athlete, so.
Yeah, it's very interesting, yes, we have a new dynamic.
Well, and it's it's cultural too, because if you watch TV where they do the different award ceremony, I mean, shoot,
You know, the
look at Will Smith, I mean,
Oh,
going
yeah.
up and slapping somebody, you know, so, it's just, yeah, fighting against the lie.
So, again, this is about learning, it's about reflection, looking at what we've done in the past, how we can get better in the future, but thinking about when we're in this social system, we have to have that shared purpose. We have to have it crystal clear for everybody, not even the people inside the building, but the people on the outside of the building. We have to know, what is our mission? What are we aiming to? I used to cringe when we had to rewrite our mission statement, but it is so important that you have to do it, and you have to make sure everybody gets it and everybody owns it. And then your vision, what is it gonna look like when we reach that point that we're trying to get to with our work? And then how are we gonna decide if our work is good or not? You know, how are we gonna decide if this is what we want in our classrooms? If this is what we want in our school? if this is what we want in our community.
That's kind of a discussion we had over here with ours,
Okay.
because this particular plan had 14 indicators, which to me seemed like a whole lot.
Right.
But as we were talking about it, a lot of times we know that the district will push down indicators that you have to have. And so we
And
were,
the state.
yeah, we were going by different indicators, and we were saying, well, that one's MTSS, and that one's PLCs, and that one's having a sit team. And so because in a district, like I'm from Cumberland County and we're massive,
Right.
we're gonna have different schools that are at different levels of implementation. So you might make us have a 401, and this school might be rocking out MTSS, so it's like putting something on a SIP plan. Like we said, how you write something on your to-do list that you've already done, so you can check it
Right.
off. Where somebody else really needs to focus on that, and it muddies the water of what is the very specific mission and vision of your school, because the systems push things down.
Okay, that's a good point. Very good point. So what do we do about it? Do we just live with it? You know?
Personally, for this plan, I think that it would be more helpful if I know that the structure of this is probably mandatory. However, if the indicators, even if they're multiple, like aligned with multiple parts of the goals and whatnot, if they would align on here,
Oh, yeah.
so it's not just like,
Makes
here are
more
our goals,
sense.
here are our indicators, and then the grow that we had for this one was that there's not clear action steps. So like, here's our goals, here's our indicators, but there's like a piece missing in between of like, here's how we're gonna get there.
Yeah. That's the meat.
I mean, it could be in the Industar.
Well, we're getting to public snapshot.
So, great collaboration. I hope you're beginning to think about things maybe a little differently. That's our goal. We're gonna talk about people now. People. We're in the people business. But sometimes it's really hard to work with people in business. And so we're gonna look at, and you're good at this, you know this. I don't wanna just, keep beating a horse, but thinking about when you're doing this work of school improvement, the work with the people is so critically important. So our work is to remove barriers and to make more intrinsic motivation. So we're gonna look at that. We're gonna try to think about encouraging leadership at all levels. It's not just about the leader in the building, it's about everybody in the building, the students, the parents, the community. It's about making sure we're all working together with teamwork and cooperation. So this is a cute little video, fingers crossed that it's gonna work. Raise your hand if you've already seen it. Yeah, a couple of you, yeah, okay, not everybody. But it really opened my eyes to a little bit more, and it's a great analogy about how we can encourage people and help make changes occur. So let's see if this is going to work. Oh my, just right. Sound, might have some ads, y'all know how that is. Yeah. I have no idea.
No
what this
ads.
is. Then there are.
It's in French.
Yeah.
Psychologists know that there are two systems in our brains, the rational system and the emotional system. Jonathan Haidt, who's a psychologist at NYU, came up with a great analogy for these two systems. He said, think of your brain as a human rider atop an elephant. The rider represents the rational system. That's the part of us that plans and problem solves. The rider might do some analyzing and decide, hey, I want to go that way. But it's the elephant, representing the emotional system, that provides the power for the journey. The rider can try to lead the elephant or drag the elephant, but if these two ever disagree, who would you bet on? The elephant has a 6-ton weight advantage, and it's exactly that power imbalance that makes adopting new behaviors very hard. If you want this duo to head a new direction, you also need to think about the path, which represents the external environment. This duo is more likely to complete a journey if you can shorten the distance and remove any obstacles in their way. So bottom line, if you want to lead change, you've got to do 3 things. Give direction to the rider, knowledge of how to get to the destination. You've got to motivate the elephant, which means tapping into emotion. And finally, you need to shape the path to allow for easy progress. That's how change happens.
engage your people this year in your building? Just think about it. Give you 1 minute. How did you engage your people? Okay, I'm gonna call on a couple of you. Cindy, how'd you engage your people this year?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I did not.
Okay. That's being honest. I appreciate that.
I mean, the only thing I've done since January is discipline and having a conversation, you know, if we're able to get observations done. I mean, literally, that's all TJ and I've done.
Yeah.
So there's
But
not
I
been a
will
lot of
say-
engaging.
Yeah, I will say that because I did see you way back in August and September-ish.
Yes.
I did see
Yes.
some carts
Yes.
with
I saw it.
kids, and you were taking things to teachers. This is from my memory from 8 months ago.
Interim, yes.
Yep, I
yes.
did see TJ, talk about the volunteers and how you were gonna have a luncheon or something for them. So, what, you
So-
know, how,
So,
what happened?
so I'll go back to the
I'm saying
internship.
you're wrong, but.
No, I hadn't even thought about internship.
But you
That's
forget,
just-
you forget after 8
Honestly, I
months.
forgot, yeah. I
Yeah.
did.
So I try to do with the staff the same thing that I do with kids is try to meet them first in a positive, like I'm just asking about their day. I didn't come in to ask you about lesson plans or anything like that, if I can help it. So that way, that the first time I'm interacting with you, I'm just trying to get to know you before
There you go.
we get into the work business. And in some cases, you're able to do that. Sometimes my first conversation is a corrective action, or you didn't turn this in and we need to do that. But that's what I usually try to do.
And that's a great strategy. When you first see people, you say something kind of a positive or something kind of to break the ice in the wall a little bit, okay? What else? How did you engage with your people? Yes,
So
ma'am.
I would, be visible, and when, people, students or staff members would talk to me, I would try to actively listen, which was kinda hard when there's so many things going on,
Yes.
if someone's talking in your little earpiece.
Yeah.
I wish I had one of those.
Yeah.
That's my,
Yes.
my, FBI Secret Service thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just trying just to.
To be visible.
Right,
Yeah.
like that I'm there.
Accessible.
My principal does a really good job of, I mean, she's very busy, but her door is always open, and it's funny, people are like, are you busy? And it's like, I'm always busy, come in, you know,
Yeah.
what you need, so just trying to model that behavior.
Okay, very good. So we're talking about engaging. How did you open the door? How did you, think about building those relationships with people in your building? And we, you know, yes ma'am, you wanna share one?
Same way I started off being an instructional coach, I always try to be a resource.
Yeah.
Figure out what it is that they needed, and try to get it for them.
Meet their needs. You know, what do you need? What can I do for you? I was listening to a podcast just recently about, you know, our teachers leaving our profession in droves and why. And one of the, points that came out was that it's about how much they felt cared for and needed, and what could we do for you, and how can we support you? It's just that, you know, meeting that first basic human need of what can we do to help you, you know? And yeah, we're at that point, we're there, especially after everything you've been through. Just being there, just listening, just saying, what can I take off your plate? What can I do to make your life a little easier? How can I meet your needs? And that builds that relationship and that trust, right? So when we do this work of school improvement, we've got to remember that work. We can't just say, oh, they're just gonna like me, or we're just gonna have Cokes and popcorn on Fridays, or I'm just gonna let everybody wear jeans. It's got to be a lot more than that. It's got to be about engaging the body, mind, and spirit of the people. It's got to be where you have that trust. You have that, we're in this together, we're a team. How can we do that? Y'all, we're so busy. How can you reach out to all of your teachers? It's got to be more. It's got to be deep. A couple of things in the research that I found, and a lot, does anybody ride horses in here? Anybody? Okay. So, explain never lie to your horse to us.
I mean,
Yeah.
just like with any, I mean, an animal can tell, like, and the horses are very, sensitive to your movement,
Yeah,
your
I'm
movement,
scared.
yeah, so they could, they'll fuck you off.
Never lie to your horse, and, you know, I wish I had more exposure to riding horses. I did at one time when I was younger, but I'm a little scared now to get up really high on those big horses. But, you know, your people are just like that. You know, they're gonna know when you're blowing steam and, you know, you're not telling the truth. Your kids definitely know, your students definitely know, your parents know. So you've gotta be honest with people, even if it's hard to be honest, even if it's hard to say, yeah, we didn't do so well this year with this one. You know, you gotta remember our, you know, Chinese proverb, give me a fish or teach me to fish. You've got to enable your people. You've got to involve them. You've got to give them jobs. You've got to get them a part of the team. Industar, I know, I started to use that when I was a principal, and then I got moved, but it was a tool that when I first was exposed to it and went to the training, I was like, yes, I'm gonna get everybody involved, you know? Everybody's gonna have a job, everybody's gonna have a part of this. It's not just on me anymore, it's not just on the team, it's everybody. And, you know, and then my district was like, skirt, we're not gonna use Industar. And so I had to do that talk, but now I see it's out, everybody's using it, I think. Especially if you're a Title I or you're low performing school, you have to use it. How is that working for you? Y'all talk to me a little bit. How is Industar working? How is it working where you're involving your people in your school improvement? Be honest, this is a safe place. Is it working where you're involving people in the process or not?
I think with like the accountability pieces of like assigning people to specific action steps is great, but the program itself is painful.
Yeah.
It's painful, and when you can do it better differently, it's really hard to have to go back and then plug it on into this program that is not user friendly at all.
And then when you have people who are on sit and they don't care, and they don't want to do anything, and they never do anything, and then it's like, you assign them something, then you're still having to do it because they don't do it, so it goes back to,
Yep. There is that, yep.
no purpose.
And somebody has to do it, right? You know. So we have to build capacity, don't we? Somehow we have to build that capacity to engage our people with this work. It is good work, but we're in that system. We have to make the system work for us. We have to engage, we have to be consistent with our work, and we have to build that trust.
Well, I can kind of give an example of
Okay.
a system
Okay.
that does that, although I do agree with Jamie that the program is just kind of archaic in the way it's built. But, so we assigned we had 7 indicators this year, and we assigned each indicator under a correlate team that's aligned with our district strategic plan. So we had 4 correlate teams.
That's good.
Everybody's assigned to a correlate team. Correlate teams had leaders, none of which were administrators. All the administrators were members. And so each month when the correlate teams met, it was their responsibility to also put a meeting in Industar with their particular indicators. So that did involve.
Yeah, that sounds good. There's a good idea. Let's save it, let's write it down. And I like calling them correlate teams like that. That's great.
We had premier professionals, committed communities,
Ooh.
successful students, and Onika, help, what's the last one? Yes, exceptional environment.
Okay, so does everybody know her school district and her school?
Cumberland County, yep.
All right, steal that idea. That's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have a good idea? How you involved your people in this work?
don't know if this is really a good idea, maybe this is a non-example.
Well, it's okay.
So, 2 years ago, we were a consolidation of 2 schools, and the 2 schools have had trouble merging, the staffs have. So this year's SIT team was made up of mainly people who were unhappy, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So, it goes back to culture. I don't think the SIT team will be engaged until your culture is right. And I know it's something we have to do, but like, we have a sunshine committee, and last week we had a total blow up because it was like one school versus another school.
Oh, wow.
So, it's like our culture is not yet ready to be effective.
Right.
Well, can I add something
Yeah,
to help?
we're gonna have to go
Maybe?
through the trenches.
So, one thing that was modeled really well for our staff meetings was starting off with a personal narrative, and I think I talked about, I think I shared this already. So, the staff was expected to sit in groups, not necessarily with your grade level, but it could be. And then every staff meeting or any meeting, we started off with a personal narrative that would connect people. So once you know a story about somebody, you can't go back, you've made the connection. And so it's that consistency and trust piece. And then one thing that was also modeled really well is he would just like drop anecdotal nuggets. So kind of bring it back to the humanity portion of it. And so we're not robots, we're not perfect, but remember this one time back in my 20s when I did this is kind of like that. And so it just kind of like diffused and then brought it back to like the root of the problem. And he's like a master of that, and I'm still learning.
Krinsky?
Yep.
Yeah.
We had, a guy who came and did ACT boot camp training, and that was, I told my principal, cause I sat in on it the first day, I was like, he is so good, like, the kids were totally all in, like, the whole time. And one of the things he told me afterwards was, it's stories, he said, you have to tell stories.
Stories. Yeah. All right, these are great ideas. Please keep sharing. We need all the help we can get. This is something that we're gonna rely on each other to do. The blind man and the elephant, I'm not gonna read that story to you, but I'm sure you've heard it. It's a great analogy of how we all have our own perspectives and we bring them to the table. You know, makes me think about your 2 schools merging, and then how everyone sees a different situation, a different outcome. We still need to respect everyone's viewpoint, but we all have to work together to come to the common understanding. And so that is, it takes a lot of time. It takes going through the trenches sometimes, going through some hard times to get through it and to see each other through. And those relationships that you form and you kind of suffer a little bit through, some of them become stronger, and you see that you can rely on that other person. You begin to trust them. It's consistent. They're gonna be there. But I love the story idea. So now I want you to turn to somebody in your team, and I really want you to talk about what was your specific involvement with school improvement this year in your space where you work. All right, be honest, what did you do? What was your role? School improvement.
Industry. And coaching, school improvement chair to actually charity, rather than just charity being agenda.
It was
Like that wasn't
trying to guide them on how to
better as the year went on, but it was just not
because again, people who was my person.
That's
Really felt like they were voted, but
I think
it was their turn to be done with this side. It was just kind of going through the motions, and I know my mission what she said, that, you know, whenever they have a meeting, wait about 20 minutes before going in, because what will happen is, if an administrator is there, they'll automatically turn to the administrator and say, what do you think, what did that say? Trying to be hands off, but still guide a little bit if they're off track.
say former media coordinator.
I
So
understand that.
like, so sometimes we can have, I'll get what I do, like now that here's relationships. No one knows this, like everyone knows this in a complete sense. And then, like, there were seminars that usually have maybe, like, then I share the specific feedback. When she said that, things are bothering you, this hadn't bothered me before. I mean, almost like, if there was more knowledge. Yeah. And I know it feels good to have it. I'm gonna give you one body. I'm gonna use one body. You said that already, right? But that's kind of hard to do. You gotta parse that out. She took it Do the minutes get sent out from any store, but then everybody says that they should wait for the framework? And then they're
school that I was just an intern at, our goals, they decided was just intern. So they were not looking for a goal format, and I was trying to encourage that because we were learning about that and UMass. And it was a team decision, so they voted like, yep, we're doing the indicators. And so like whenever I was saying that, you know, the report of the schools, that's what I said, I mean, they are not, but they voted on what they're not in this form, so. I noticed a lot more, that's why I asked that question, that I feel like there are a lot more students not doing it correctly, and I don't know if I've seen my slide, especially since that's going to the state. And I know they're supposed to be in that form there to where your state person is supposed to make comments and all of that. And I saw it in the beginning, but I hadn't seen them in the last few years.
You know, it's like,
You're talking about within the district? Yeah, I'm talking about the, from DBI where they make those comments as well. Got it. Some point.
A lot of the people that are
Like I have to pull their, something that says they're all these new values. Manually type on it that were uploaded, and then I have to manually type in what their lexile is. Great. And what it is.
Are the schools gonna count this year? Yeah, so if you're doing the cost exemption, well, like I said, it is true. Right. Yeah. But for smart people, everything we can do this. It's tough, but it's tough. But you like really on what did you think? This year.
How long do you want to be in anything before you have the opportunity to?
Still, trying to get some knowledge in there. Did you see any growth? Did you have noticed any growth with yeah.
Do you know how things coming?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, just hearing a couple of thoughts here. Some people didn't get to interact a whole lot. Does anybody have a specific example they want to share about what you did with school improvement this year? Were you able to impact it? Were you able to be a part of it other than just putting in data? Anything?
We were like all assigned roles, so this was year 2, so it was already kind of like in place.
Right.
So my job was to do curriculum nights.
Oh,
So I did some, and that was like a way to help communicate to parents, that was like part of our goal. So, I like the way that our SIT did it though, because every month we had the meeting, and then there would be like action steps or whatever, but it would say the person's name and what they were responsible for bringing to that meeting.
Okay.
That way, when we got there, there wasn't like, oh, well, let me try to find all this data, let me see what. We only had one person, who was our SIT chair, that would input everything, but I kinda liked it that way, because we had the data at the meeting, we discussed it, and then she would just take it and then boop, upload it right there, so it wasn't like an extra step, like she was doing it at the meeting. I don't know. That was my first time ever, I never inputted anything into that system. When I served as SIT, that was like before all of that got pushed down everybody's throats, so. But I enjoyed that, and I liked it because everybody was responsible, and like, I think, not that you would get called out, but if you didn't have it, it was like, you're wasting our time, why are you wasting our time? So it was kinda nice, everybody knew upcoming, and then like our principal would put out to like, just a reminder, people on SIT, click on this, click on this document, this is the stuff that you're responsible for.
Okay, and so organization, sounds like it was in place, and everybody understood, that norm was there. That was good, good example. Yes, ma'am.
So I had a lot of input with SIT this year, which was different, cause I never did as a teacher, because in schools that I was at, it was like the person who was on SIT was the person who wasn't doing all the other things. So because I was like grade level chair and mentor and doing other stuff,
Right.
I never got, volunteer for tribute. So, when I came in, Tracy immediately gave me a huge data binder, and I went through the CNA, and she's like, I always go through and I fill it out first, just to see where our needs are. And she's like, when we go in, the goal is to present that to your staff in a way that they have those conversations to see it too. So like, I didn't write the goals, but I provided the data, and we went through systems and processes so that everyone on the team clearly saw where we needed to go as a school as well, which was just kind of like a thing of beauty to watch, because I would have SIT retreat in the way that it was ran, or how to do all those things. So we did like the root cause analysis, and we wrote goals together, and then they broke out into teams, and teams went by and said, these are gonna be our key indicators, this is how we know when we get there. So that was really eye-opening for me, and one of the things I was telling Daisy that, like, my things that I just jotted down to make sure I don't forget, is that you can have a member at large, you can have additional members, that are added to the ones who are voted, because you have to legally do that. And that was our kind of workaround to the fact that we only had social studies teachers on our school improvement plan, and they're the only teachers that don't have an EOG currently. And so in order to keep the perspective, that member at large position is a ELA teacher. So that, you know, there's still that balance there of, you know, well, this is what we have to think about as we're working towards, all of the other assessments and things that we are, accountable for. And then the other thing is that not everyone at SIT is re-voted on every year. Only half of the positions are voted on each year, so that somebody sees that plan all the way through, the 2-year cycle, which I don't think I did that our last school did that. So that was some things that I just noted down that, like, never forget this.
Very good, that's a great example. Yes, ma'am?
Is that county to county, like, because ours are yearly?
Yeah, it is county to county, and, we had to vote on that as a board. We had to present it to the board as a plan, and then they had to approve it.
I just feel like that goes, I mean, I realize that you only have those students there for a year, potentially. But at the same time, I feel like that kind of goes into, you've got to give things that you're trying time to work,
Right.
and time to get results.
Yes.
And I always feel like maybe that would have us, you know, in Harnett County at least, you know, maybe stop spinning wheels. We're doing
Right.
the same thing this year we did last year.
Right.
And we're still collecting data, but
Yeah.
maybe if we got 2 years of data to kind of see the trends and back things up on, that maybe.
And state law allows you to do that, but then your board has to say, yes, that's the process we wanna follow. So, yeah, that's great,
I
great
just see where that could be
example.
very, very,
Yeah.
very effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's effective that you do the half on, half off, so there's always
Yes.
someone on that
Yeah.
knows kind
Makes
of what's
sense.
going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
like mentor mentee, you
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
guide them along, and then they're the mentors.
So then, cause I didn't know that, so what I'm hearing is that we have to, like, there are certain things that we have to advocate for if we see, like, you know, like, for, in your example, in your county, like, that's something that you want as principals, you have to kind of collectively come together and say, we're gonna do this.
Yes, always have your why, have your data to back it up. Have-
And especially at
yeah.
my school, and it, you know, I may be speaking, I am speaking entirely for myself here, but I'm a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade school.
Yeah.
So when we don't have K-5, I mean, we could go to our feeder school and ask for that data. But at the same time, we're responsible for what happens at Adrian Elementary. So
Right.
when you're talking about 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you know, I just feel like the 2 years would be beneficial.
I think so too. I think you should consider it. You know, that's a great point. So just thinking, we're not actually gonna do this, but to kind of conclude our part about our people, how does the rider and elephant fit within your school improvement efforts? How can you reach their hearts? You know, that's our first, our emotion. How can you remove the barriers? How can you give them a target? How are you going to do that? School leaders, how are you going to build your team, build your leadership? How are you going to implement the rider and the elephant? And then, doesn't end, how will you work to engage the rider and the elephants? And it's not just our teachers, it's our students, it's our parents, it's our community. So, great analogy there of working with people. So now let's get into knowledge. We're gonna wrap up in about 20 minutes. Knowledge is just the process. How are we gonna use our tools, our methods? How are we gonna plan? How are we gonna use our theory and prediction methodologies to decide what are we gonna do, when are we gonna do it? So just a little bit about that. I love the fact that I'm hearing comprehensive needs assessment. You must do this work before you can begin. Of course, There's a lot of different steps to it. I remember telling my assistant superintendent, I want a data manager, I want a data team, you know, to come to my school and help with this work. But we've got to do the work. You know, you've got to enable your folks, you know, find someone that really loves data. Jamie came to me my first day, I think, look at my data. So she would be one that I would tap into doing the work. You've got to find people in your building that love to work with data and analysis. So that comprehensive needs assessment is critical. It helps you to identify the need, and there are lots of data points that you can gather. Think about that for a minute. We're gonna name some in just a minute. We've gotta think about what is our priority? How can we optimize? How can we get the biggest bang for our buck? What do we need to work on? What are some of the causes that we need to dig into? And sometimes it's kind of surprising. And then how are we gonna solve this problem? We've gotta select our solutions. What are we gonna implement? What are we gonna try? We're gonna give it some more time. This process, this plan that we've already implemented, and then we set our goals and we complete the plan. So, we all know about the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, and this is from not just Deming, I can't remember the name historically, but it goes before Deming, but that Plan, Do, Study, Act, I've been in schools and classrooms where I even saw it posted on the wall in the classroom for the children to use the same philosophy of continual improvement, Plan, Do, Study, Act. I know that you know this very well. I'm gonna pass out a sheet in just a minute. We're gonna work on it together, but basically we've got a plan, we've gotta know our purpose. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna carry out our plan? How are we gonna collect our data? And then what are we gonna do with that next cycle? Are we gonna abandon it, or are we gonna continue it? So remember the Plan, Do, Study, Act. Can anyone give me an example of this year? Did you use it in your school? A student, a teacher, all right? Somebody I haven't heard from today, real quiet person. We got any little quiet people in the room? Yep. Let's see. Yes, ma'am.
Quiet today. This is weird.
In the principal that I've been able to work with this year was her first year at our school, and so we were able to look at teacher data from studying the EOGs and scores and looking at the strength of some of our content teachers. We want to know what they were doing, what are they modeling, how can their practices be implemented throughout the school, and so we just keep revisiting those classrooms, and we do place them in positions to help lead the culture and instruction of our school. And so that was one of the ways that we planned going into a new school year, knowing that it's still her first year, but she was able to look at that data from the prior year. Something good's going on there, they need to hear that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it was being articulated before, that there are great things going on in the school, but now, how do we begin to see that same instructional culture, I guess, in every classroom? They obviously know their content, and how can we help support the other instructional leaders in the school? But that was the plan, and then how we're gonna carry out that plan. And my mentor principal has been all about articulating, helping folks with professional development, getting them in the right place, but also carrying it through. She's so good at following through. It's one thing to talk about getting the needs out there, but she stays on them in regards to, do you wanna go to this professional development, but how can we help support you? So, the planning and the doing, and the aim, all of it, she's great at modeling and trying to make our school better than it's ever been.
That's
So
great.
that was one area,
Yeah.
to take what we had in front of us and to share with others in the building.
That's great, that's good. So we think of this as a framework, right? This is a framework, so we have a system
Right.
to implement a new idea or to study something that we're curious about, like how can we take our top teachers and replicate some of their practices in the building. So when we think about school improvement work, this is a perfect framework to do the work, okay? It's kind of like a duh, yeah. But we're really good. We're really good at planning. Man, we can write some beautiful plans. We can write it, it's so pretty, we're using all these little buzzwords. And then we start doing it, yeah, okay, we start day one, right? Do we? Okay, well, are we doing our plan? We might throw out a new piece of software. We're gonna use this iReady tool to help increase EOGs and EOC scores. All right, so we're gonna do it, we're doing the work, we're gonna implement these new graphic organizers, we're gonna use this new system, right? We're gonna use this new tool. So we're doing it, we're doing it, we're doing it. And then, oh my gosh, it's May, we're tired. We get our results, they don't come in until June. We get our point, but no, we've had NC check-ins. Remember, we have had NC check-ins. So we study, do we study? Do we study our data?
Yes.
All right, just checking. Are we studying it? All right, are we analyzing it? Are we comparing it? Okay, so we're doing that. When are y'all doing that? When are y'all doing your study part? I'm just, ELCs.
And then we have 3-5 data analysis on professional development.
Okay.
Data walls.
So you don't wait till the end of the year. Right, you're doing it throughout the year. Okay, now, right, we're ready to act. We're ready to reflect. We're ready to, when does that happen?
It should be happening after you're kind of reviewing some of that data so that you can make in real time adjustments. I know I went to a NC DPI sponsored school improvement thing a few weeks ago, and that was one of the things they talked about is a lot of times people use lagging data, which is like EOGs, EOCs,
Right.
that stuff that only happens once, and you need a combination of leading data and lagging data so that way you're constantly monitoring throughout the time.
Okay, say those terms again, TJ.
So they refer to lagging data as that thing that only happens like one lagging.
Lagging.
Some people call it autopsy data.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's done.
And then that leading data is something that happens more recurrently, like
think you're good.
once a month or.
Lagging and leading. Those are two new terms. I like that.
I hadn't heard it too. He said it that day.
Okay, so your conclusion again, say it one more time.
So he was
Not
saying that
just-
there's that not just to rely on that one, wait until the end of the school year data to say did this work, but if you have some of that leading data that you're looking at constantly, then you can make that change right then and there instead of saying, oh, well, this didn't work, we'll try it again next year this way.
Right.
Make the adjustment in March if you need to, or if you had some leading data in November, make the change then and not having to wait till another school year.
Hallelujah. That's where it always used to bottleneck on us. All we had were that, EOGs, EOCs. Nobody was even in the building. And then you come back and you're like, okay, forget that. That was last year. We gotta do better this year, okay. So is anybody else using leading data analysis to act? Is anybody else doing it in the middle of the year?
check-ins, iReady.
Okay, so what is that is amazing. So what are you doing? Like how are you changing your practices? I wanna know.
Our teachers are at PLCs discussing their data and actually making groups to, help those students who were not successful. So it's not really remedial,
Yeah.
but it's teaching in a different way. So if a teacher had a way of teaching it and she used, I don't know, one way of doing it, but this teacher said, well, this is how I did it, so maybe those students in that class that didn't get it would go to that other teacher. And just hearing it a different way, or even
Yes.
just, whatever she did. And it has been successful this year. I mean, we've had a lot of students that have made gains just from being pulled out for 15 minutes twice a week,
That's great.
to get certain concepts.
That's great. not waiting till the end.
We haven't done it this year, but at a school I was at previously, we would also look at, for example, like you just said, if another teacher had a different strategy, we would even sometimes cross team.
Yeah.
So like, we would have a time when those kids could go to the other teacher to hear it from a different perspective versus getting, you know, maybe a different strategy from the same teacher, you know, crossing and going to the teacher who did it.
Michelle?
I was just gonna say that, I think that's so innovative, and I'd love to see more of that in our schools where we're fluid with that. Because just like when we were teachers in the classroom, if your kids are looking at you, or a lot of them with, you know, blank eyes, you know to shift. You can't just keep doing the same thing and expect different results, So I think that would be such an innovative school, and I know some do it, where they're all our kids.
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
I think we were really on the right track with that, at least at my old school where I taught, and then COVID. That's what
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
COVID made everybody
Yes.
scared, just, you know,
Right.
you
Yeah.
didn't know
Yeah.
you're in charge,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
But I
we
think
were
that's our
really on a good
biggest,
path.
that's our biggest work this year, I think, is, you know, we're gonna kinda go in to a more of a normal setting this year, and it's getting teachers to shift that mindset. You can pull small groups, you can have those rich
Right,
conversations.
Right.
And that, to me, is where your power lies, and so I think that's my biggest thing going forward this year is small groups, small groups, small groups, small groups.
And you had to do so much shifting with, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
okay.
thought you were done there.
No, you're good.
I'm done.
Yeah, she is.
We had to do so much shifting as teachers, we've got to be able to emulate, or at least, you know, articulate that for our teachers now as leaders, because so many of my teammates, when I was a teacher in second grade, when we came out from COVID, were like, I can't do small groups, I can't pull back my small table. I said, well, I've strategically placed my kids in my classroom where I can take my little rolling chair around, and we had a reading group, we were still 6 feet apart, well, 3,
Right.
you know, we don't have 6 feet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's almost like we didn't want to put things into place that could work, because we were still under that,
Yeah.
you know, but we can. No, we can, and we're
Right.
coming out of it now in a way that we have got to be more innovative than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You know, 'cause
Exactly.
we've got to get back to where we were doing this best for our
That's
kids.
great.
And we do have to recognize that was a scary time.
Oh, yeah.
We had
Oh,
people who
100%.
lost, and I'm not disagreeing,
No,
but
you're
yeah,
right.
people who lost people.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, that's where we have to, and hopefully we won't have something like that happen again, where we can keep rolling
Yeah.
forward.
That's right.
Cause I think we have so many good things planned.
It's so important, and I love what you're saying about your teachers driving it. That's huge. Your teachers are driving the work, and you're enabling and encouraging and moving the barriers out of the way. And so think about how you can get to their hearts. You know, when, right now, where you're thinking about next year, think about what you can do to get to their heart, their emotion, to make them, you know, have so much confidence. It's all about that confidence. I am the professional educator, and they're feeling beat up, y'all are feeling beat up, so you're gonna have to really work to think about that confidence. But this framework gives us the structure, the process. And so that's why it's so important. Even your students in classrooms can use this. I hope that you will consider thinking about, you know, having your students to regulate and monitor their learning. Yes, it's been around for a long time, but I think we need to come back to it. I mean, Ashley talking about they don't even, you know, go into an athletic banquet without yelling and screaming. So we've gotta have this, you know, framework for our students to even use to monitor themselves and to be more self-regulated and independent. We want them to be independent. So consider using this at all levels of leadership. This is just a neat theory that I was like, okay, how do we decide what to do? You know, what do we want to use as our best tool? And this is a kind of a neat theory about taking action and not being afraid to take action. You are smart people. Think about how you can get the most leverage from a tool. What tool is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck? It's called the nudge. You know, these big ships are steered by a trim tab, and that nudge of action action and movement. So as you're working in your teams and you're working with your people, you know, going back to small groups might be your trim tab. That's gonna have a huge effect on student learning. My husband is a high school, core and sustainable construction teacher and masonry teacher. And he told me the story just this week, because this is his week of trying to get everybody to finish their work so they can get their credentials. And he said he had a girl in his class and she just was not doing her work. And he said, "You're sitting right here," you know. He was like, "You're sitting beside me, we're gonna get this work done." And so she was like, "I'm not gonna be able to do it, I'm not gonna be able to do it." And he said, "Yes, you are." And it was just his back and forth, and he told me, he said, he finally got her to sit there and they did the work together. You know, he said, this is what we're reading, these are our questions, now put your answers in, and he kinda held her hand, literally, you know, to get the work done. And she would pass, then she had to take her test, and she would take the test and she'd pass it, and she'd make 100. And he said, she just was, you know, he was tired for a minute there, and he was like, "No, let's stop. No, let's keep doing it, this is fun." So he's getting her just that one-on-one time at the table beside him, giving her the confidence that she needed to know that she could master that content. Those little things add up just a little bit at a time to the big successes. She's gonna get her credential for her, you know, construction class. So think about what you think is a good theory. What are you gonna put in place? What are you gonna try? And predict where you might end up. Try to commit to one high-level strategy that is likely to have the greatest impact. You're gonna have all these little butterflies flying around. Well, let's try this, let's try that. Try to come up with your best strategy. Then think about how you're gonna hold, what's your vision for that strategy? What's that criteria, that quality criteria that I'm looking for? And then how am I gonna monitor it and analyze the impact on student learning? So, you know, Daisy, you're talking about coming back to the small groups. Think about how you are going to monitor that. How are you gonna implement that? And it sounds like, well, we've been doing this forever, but you've gotta have the data to demonstrate that it's working. But I encourage you to think about that high-level strategy. When you're working with people, you're gonna have to give them permission that it's gonna get messy, that it's not always gonna be beautiful, it's not always gonna work perfectly each time. Give them permission. Remember to help people see how that initiative is gonna connect to their work. Remember that greater purpose? We all want to serve something greater than ourselves. And then leaders, you've gotta participate. You've gotta get in there with them. You've gotta attend the professional development. You've got to work with them through the trenches. You know, I'm thinking about my schools that just merged. When they see you in the thick of things, getting dirty and sweaty and frustrated some days, you know, they're going to know they can trust you and that you're gonna be there for them. Make sure you participate. All right, so we're not gonna, I think I'm gonna pass on that one right now, but just thinking about your own school right now, the school you're in right now. What are your critical success factors? Just write down one of them, just for yourself. What are your critical success factors for your school this year? Think about that. Is that in your school improvement plan? No, might be, might not be. I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna speed up just a little bit. This is a great, diagram, it's a template that you might wanna use. You can see I'm pulling it from our, quality leadership. And you can see that this is called the bone diagram, looks like a bone. You think about your current state, this is a great tool to use at the beginning of the year, where we all think about our current state, what's going on. We think about our desired future state, that's on the other end of the bone. And then you think about what are the driving forces that are gonna help us get to that future state. But you also spend some time thinking about the restraining forces that might give you a little pushback. And so what this does, it kind of helps that vision, kind of helps people to see about where we are and where we wanna go, and how we're gonna get there, and what kind of things we might need to overcome. So it's a great template. It's called the bone diagram. So to end up, I'm gonna do this in 5 minutes. We're gonna talk about variation and data. I think you're all really good at this part. It's nothing that you don't know about, but what I've learned is that we need to use multiple measures of data. We need to use our data to drive our improvement, and that helps us to understand our system and our processes. So we all know about the different types of measurement, performance measures. We all got that down pat. But have you analyzed your processes before? You know, that process measurement, trying to think about something, you know, we always used to have 6th grade orientation, you know, where the 5th graders come over and we orient them. That is a process. Have you ever analyzed the, you know, the process? Were we effective or not? So think about your process measures. Think about even testing. Y'all are going through that right now. So you've got your plan, you've got your theory, you've planned it out. This is how we're gonna do things this year. This is gonna make it better than it was last year. So you're getting ready to implement your testing. So I challenge you to analyze your process when it's all said and done. Get some feedback from your teachers and your students and your parents even. How did we do with our testing plan? You know, did it work? Was there something we could have done better? So we need to remember to analyze our processes. Perceptions, of course. You know, we think about all the feedback. We need to get that qualitative data. How did we do with our teacher working conditions? You know, that's big about perception data. So you've got that measurement already there, but I challenge you to do it in between cycles. Think about how you can analyze and get quick checks on perceptions. And then input measures, think about how you can analyze our inputs. What are some things that we are inputted into our system? That sounds kind of weird, but you know, our students, right? Have you ever thought about analyzing the data? Yep. Your demographics, attendance. Yep. So thinking about all those different types of measures, here's a lot of some data sets that I could think of. And this is a great handout. I love this graphic from Victoria Bernhardt. And this is a great little, actually giving y'all a piece of paper about different types of data. Yes, ma'am. I know y'all getting tired and hungry. We're almost to lunch. Been sitting forever. So, thinking about the different data sets, thinking about how you can pull this together. Sometimes we have too much data, I think, but you've got a lot of data that's required and a lot of data that's going to be really effective to help you analyze the current state of your school. And just to kind of close right now on this piece, what do you understand by the expression data or the voice of the system? What does that mean? Our data is the voice of our system.
Speaks for what we do.
Yep.
and what we don't do.
Absolutely. Yep, good point. So we
You have
need
to be
aware
honest
of
with
it.
yourself about what that data, cause it may be different than what you're thinking or what your gut is.
Yes. Yes.
Cause lots of times you look at it, it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was this bad, or it's actually going, you hear those people that express their negative views, oh, this isn't working, but then when you start compiling the data, it actually is. It's or at least moving in a positive, direction.
I think you can't just look at data like straight face either, cause people, you can manipulate data. I know they say data
Yes.
doesn't lie.
Yes.
But from a historical context,
Right.
like, you
Yeah,
can
Yes.
manipulate data.
That's
You
true.
can write your story.
Yeah.
You
You
can
can
lie, yeah.
make it fit
Yeah.
to your
Goes back
narrative.
to something, I think once, there was some sort of thing where it's like, we were number 2 in the state in whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, there were only 2 in the state. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you could say we're either number 2 or you could say we're last. It's how, you know.
Y'all know about the House committee that's going around the state to reinvent public schools? Have you heard about this group?
Mm-mm.
And so I've been watching, and they haven't come around here. I was like dying to get to one of those meetings, but they never came where I could get there. But every single school district said, we're the best school district in the state. I mean, every single one. Of course they're gonna say that. But think about what Ashley's saying. You can manipulate that data to tell your story, but, you know, it is what it is. You need to be honest, and we kinda went back to that, you know, we don't wanna be afraid for our data to be the voice of who we are. We've
I
gotta
don't
tell
think
the
there's
truth.
anything wrong, like, making it super simplified so that the
Yep.
public can understand. I know we like,
Yeah.
you know, bash our board and, you know, they don't, you know, not to get political, but I think
Okay.
sometimes we do need to step back
Yeah.
and just kind of say, like, this is the way it is, these are the acronyms and stuff that we use,
Yeah.
because people don't understand and don't know. This school
Right.
has changed so much in
Yeah.
just the past 20 years.
Right.
And I think a part of that is also when they say school improvement plan, they think automatically the school's bad, because they don't realize that it's a system within the expectations of what we have to do, and so they think, oh, well.
They've been put on a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then that gets taken out of context, and I don't know what you added, but sometimes it's just, like, you have to tell the truth and you have to show your data, but you also have to, as administrator, protect your staff.
Right.
So you have to like shield them to a certain extent.
It's, you know, you're right. I mean, this is a wake-up call for us. Really. We haven't been doing everything all that great. We've done a lot of good. I will go to the grave advocating for public schools as the best option, but I will also say that we're not perfect.
But we need more people like you with an education background running the school board
Yes,
too.
yes.
That's why I'm encouraging y'all are gonna be
We hear
doing
it.
this work.
Get your school open plans.
Teach that at the school board.
That's so Daisy.
And I really truly believe it. We've gotta be better, Ashley.
Yes.
We've gotta
Was
be
it,
better.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yes, ma'am, no, you're
Was it
good.
Tabari who said
I'm looking at the
teachers don't wanna
president.
be, or people don't wanna be held accountable? Like it's
That was what
intrinsic.
My person, whenever we did the interview, that was what my person said. I don't know if Tabari said it too, but that was what my person said.
And it's not a matter of not wanting to be all in.
Right.
It's a matter of that mirror and feeling, because we're all very much dedicated and feeling like you can possibly show that you're not doing all you can do.
It's part of our
So you
DNA.
have to, yeah, it has to be the relationships and how we're all working together.
That's our emotion, and I think, I always tell people, like, data's not a 4-letter word, like, it's not like a cuss word, right? Like, and if we remove, and it's hard because you're close to your students, as an administrator, I'm close to my staff, like, don't come for my teachers.
Right.
But at the same time, like, the data pushes us to have a hard conversation about, is learning happening, because that's the goal. And sometimes you can teach the most amazing lesson in the world, but if your kids didn't learn, then you didn't reach the goal, you know what I mean? And so for me, like, that's where I had to shift my mindset as a teacher about what data is and what it means to me and how I utilize it so that I don't become data rich, but then I don't not act. Like, you know, because we take lots of data, but are we looking at it, analyzing it, and then saying, okay, well, now I'm gonna change something about the adult in the room so that the kids learn.
Well, and I think it goes back to generational studies too, because if you look at millennials and we want a job, we want to feel important, and really, we don't have the interpersonal skills that maybe somebody in a previous generation had as far as work ethic goes. So if you think about like your generations that went through post-depression, their work ethic, they don't mind saying, hey, we messed up and here's what we need to do to get better. Where you look at your younger teachers and even, I mean, I'm on the oldest end of the millennials, but even your millennials, like I really struggle when I feel like I haven't achieved well. I have a hard time with that. So just teaching those interpersonal skills to your staff.
Yeah, good point.
That's good.
Well, you know, you say that, but when I think about this country, what other country in the world gives their students the opportunity for free public education? We cater to students with special needs, doesn't matter your gender, doesn't matter what your economic, you know, whatever. I know there's like schools that have more, schools that have like a little less, but we're also living in a nation that we are so, like, we're a melting pot.
Yeah.
You go to China, they all look the same, they all speak the same language, they all have the same ideology. You have a girl coming from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
So like, you know, people can say public schools are failing, yada, yada, but you have to deal with all these other issues on top of that. And I don't think that's fair until you step into a public educator's like position or role. So I think, you know, with all the things that are going on in the world today, you know, whatever.
Y'all are
I'm
gonna change.
an advocate for public people.
You're gonna change the world. You are going to
I don't want,
change.
All right,
I just don't want
Ashley,
people to
that's
feel
your
bad.
school board person
Yeah,
right there.
Right,
You know,
And, you know, that's the reality, and that's the message that we all need to share. That's what we need to share. If we don't understand our system structures, you know, what world we're in, and we do not do the hard work of analyzing what is not obvious, because we all think we know what's going on, really, but do we really? We have to spend that time analyzing it. We will continue to employ low leverage, event-driven solutions to address deep-rooted structural problems. So I hope that today, that this conversation really about the system, the people, the knowledge, the data and our tools will help to inspire you to think about school improvement just a little bit differently, a little bit deeper. We're gonna get into the law when we come back from lunch. So the nitty gritty, black and white, but I hope that this has broadened your perspective a little bit, but it's been great to have these conversations. I've enjoyed it. It's time to eat. How do we eat, y'all? Do we go out to eat or?
We go out, yep.
Okay, cool.